Welcome to ADDSABA, guys. Today we are going to talk about two chemicals, dopamine and serotonin. But before we talk about these two chemicals, let's talk about two people. One is a gangster and other is a policeman. Let's discuss the personality traits of both of these people. The gangster wants things to be done really fast. He is impatient. He enjoys things by being alone and with people. He actually doesn't care. He always believes in taking things from others and building his own empire. Basically, he is a selfish person. No matter how hard he indulges in pleasure, he is always bound to be sad in life. Now, this is the policeman. The policeman is really giving and helping in nature. He helps the people around him. He wants to be always around people. He loves his social circle. He is really happy and contented in his life. Basically, a really kind personality. Now, there is a third person entering the story. Corty, a pretty girl who is really stressed with her job. So when the gangster sees her, he becomes super excited and he does crazy things to impress her. But the policeman, he becomes inhibited and he leaves the scene whenever she comes. Guys, guess what happens next? The gangster dates Corty and here starts the whole story of addiction. What am I talking about? Dopamine is the gangster, which is the pleasure chemical. Serotonin is the policeman, which is the happiness chemical. And Corty, the pretty girl, is the cortisol, the stress hormone. A lot of people in social media call dopamine as the happiness chemical. Dopamine has nothing to do with happiness, but it has everything to do with pleasure. So, what is the nature of the gangster dopamine? If something feels good, he loves it and he wants it more. The dopamine causes intense pleasure sensation all over the body. There is an intense craving. The most important thing is dopamine doesn't like to share. Let's take an example of four people doing drugs. When the supply is more, these people share drugs and do it together. But when the supply is less, everyone is separated and they prefer to do it singly. Why? Nothing wrong with people. That itself is the nature of the dopamine. So, if some people take drugs like methamphetamine and GHB, these people have a flooding of dopamine in the brain. And the brain is like a child. It wants more and more dopamine. It is never satisfied. That's the main nature of dopamine. So, these people, in the quest for more dopamine, indulge in sex or want to see porn. And they try to release more and more and more dopamine in their brain. Brain, as I told, is like a child. Small stimulations, little stimulation of dopamine, the brain likes it. But when there is a continuous excessive stimulation in the brain with dopamine, this causes the neuronal cell death, basically the neurodegeneration in the brain. So, it doesn't matter how much pleasure we indulge in No one is going to be happy. Everyone is going to be miserable with the amount of pleasure they indulge in. So let's discuss the characteristics of a policeman serotonin. The serotonin is really opposite of dopamine, the gangster. Experience which produce serotonin. We feel really happy, blissful, but we don't crave it more. We are really satisfied and contented. Serotonin is the main chemical produced by our social interactions. When we are in a group with our friends, when we are chit-chatting, it's all the game of serotonin. Let's discuss the characteristics of the two chemicals, dopamine and serotonin, in detail. Dopamine by nature is an excitatory chemical, and serotonin by nature is an inhibitory chemical. So, dopamine tickles your brain. A small amount of tickling is really good, the brain likes it. But one thing we have to understand is that the more dopamine is produced, since it is an excitatory chemical, the neurons, when they produce more dopamine, the receptors are down-regulated. It's like there is dopamine, but there is no receptor to act for the dopamine. So, previously, if 1 unit of dopamine produced an effect, after some time, 2 units of dopamine is required to produce the same effect because the receptor is down-regulated. The experience is not possible. More dopamine is needed to produce the same action. So, this explains the tolerance which we see in the case of all drugs. So serotonergic drugs are like less addictive than dopaminergic drugs because of this phenomena. Because whenever there is more serotonin in the brain, the receptors are upregulated. Whenever there is serotonin, more serotonin, the receptors are upregulated and it takes in the serotonin. And the serotonin cannot stay in the neuronal synapse for a long time. So, when someone uses a serotonergic drug, then it has no effect after like the second time or third time, and it is less addictive than dopamine drugs. Have you ever wondered why some people around us are so negative and aggressive? Being aggressive enhances the dopamine in one's brain. Just know that all these people who are aggressive, all are depleted in dopamine. They're just trying to boost the dopamine by just being aggressive. So what are the ways to increase both these chemicals in the brain? So, first, exercise. Exercise is the most effective way to increase both dopamine and serotonin in the body. Weightlifting is really important. Some people say that weightlifting is not good, but my dear friends, just know that 1% of your bone and 1% of your muscle is decreasing each year after 30. So, weightlifting can decrease this loss of muscle and bone. So, please lift weights. And the other two important exercises are swimming. So, swimming and running. Swimming is a superior method of exercise than running, as the tension and stress in the joints is really less in swimming, so less chances of injuries. Moreover, by being in water, there is an additional mood enhancing effect caused by the water. Sunlight is another way to balance these two chemicals. Being in the sun also increases the vitamin D stores in our body. Vitamin D is linked to less depression in people. A good sleep is really important for balancing serotonin and dopamine. Early to bed and early from bed is really important. If possible, everyone should just sleep and wake up at the same times. That is really important in the boosting dopamine. Meditation is a really powerful technique to boost serotonin and dopamine. Although meditation is predominantly produces serotonin, some advanced yogic practitioners, there is huge outburst of dopamine too. You may hear some yogis experiencing intense pleasure all over their body. This is because the outburst of dopamine in advanced practitioners. ADDSABA welcome everyone to study the blue light techniques of meditation. These techniques are actually formed for awakening and enlightenment, but in this modern era, it can be used to reduce stress and increase the beauty in everyone's life. Our single aim is to make the refined bliss accessible to everyone. As a blue light practitioner for the past 15 years, my goal is to propagate blue light practices all over the world. Blue light techniques increases the baseline of dopamine in our brain. Blue light practices also increases the endogenous production of dopamine. It trains the brain to produce its own dopamine without the external help or the stimulation from an external stimuli. So we, as a group of people living on this earth at this time, can come together by forgetting our geographical borders and cultural difference and unite only through arts and sports. Hence, arts and sports is really important for raising the two chemicals and also raising the vibration of the entire humanity. Guys, if you like my video, click the like button and comment why you liked it. If you don't like it, you are free to comment why you don't like it. Feel free to send topics on the videos. What should I make in future? Also, don't forget to follow and subscribe me in Instagram and YouTube. Bye bye.